Hello, welcome to best practice sharing on upgrades. And the theme is web client redesign. So we are starting now the presentation. First of all, please meet me, Ugnis Konatavičius. I'm senior Dynamics and EV Business Central expert with over 8 years of experience in one-click factory doing upgrades. I participated in 400 and even more upgrade projects as developer, leading developer, even project manager in early days. And right now I have a lot of knowledge starting from NEV 3.7 to Dynamics Business Central 2020 release wave 2, and of course we are up to date with the latest Microsoft news from the directions and other events. Before starting, also I want to tell you that you can ask questions during all the workshop through the chat in the panel, so I will answer those as I could. So please, share it if you have any question immediately, and I will answer those. About the web client redesign, it's almost the last step from upgrade path to SaaS. Firstly, of course, there are discussions, workshops before starting the upgrade. Then in the standard methodology of upgrades, we are doing the upgrade to the last CL version, Business Central 14. Then we move customizations upgrade to events where possible. Then we convert everything to extension, also with preparations, with prefixes, with language fixes, usage category, move to the pages from many suites and so on. And only then we uplift extension to the newest Business Central version, do data migration, and you have already upgraded solution with the data in it in the newest Business Central, and you can start doing a web client redesign for layouts, pages, and other limitations, which I'm going to explain you in this workshop. And then you are ready to do a SaaS redesign, be ready for cloud sync and future technologies that Microsoft will bring. So the theme is currently a web client redesign. This is in Microsoft's NEV 2018 blog. A bit, some parts changed, but those parts which were not supported, they are not supported until now. So you see there are quite few limitations that are not supported, and others partially supported, but they don't bring the same functionality as before. The list is not very big, but it gives the user experience bugs if you want to do these searches. Of course, now in the AL Vault, we have UI cop analyzer, which have some standard rules which Microsoft released, but only one rule has an error that flow filter field repeater control cannot be used, and others are warnings. It should be fixed. They should be fixed, but they are letting you use the application even if those warnings exist. And those warnings are not all limitations. What is the web client versus Windows client, and still you need to do some jobs manually, and UI cop only solves major issues. So first limitation, when you open the web client, you would see that there is no more menu suites. It has been replaced by page search, and search includes only pages which have usage category. You don't see anymore your complex which you had in the departments, you can see the lists, all lists which were included in menu suite, because there is no more menu suite in the extensions. Please also make sure before converting everything to IL, creating the extension, please run this PowerShell script from Microsoft. It transfers usage categories and optionally application area properties from menu suite to the pages and reports that they could be found in the web client after the upgrade. Then system indicator, it works the same way. Now they are named to company badges, but I don't think the data is handled during data migration. So you need to reset up these things, but they are fully working from Business Central 16, as we know. Then field properties, like arranging fields and rows, is not supported anymore, and using properties in grid layout, column span and row span, they are not supported. So I have one example, which is in the all-known standard in the item card. There is still a grid layout control with property rows, and Windows Web Client uses now only columns. So rows means that we have everything, all those free controls in one row. As you see, that it's one group contains 3 fields, and we see all fields in one row. To make Vault a bit more realistic, I added a second group to the grid layout that it would show 2 rows instead of 1 in the standard, and I added a column span property that it would reserve 2 columns for this field. And in page, we would see 2 rows and 1 which have 2 columns reserved for it, and you can do any layout using grid layout rows easily. But what happens when we transform this page to the extension and open it in the web client? You would see a very different visual. We would see 2 columns instead of 2 rows. So please keep in mind to look through all grid layout rows properties. There are 2 rows. You see 1 row is handled perfectly, as it would be not even in the grid layout, but 2 rows are making layout a bit complicated to read. You see there are only 7 symbols in the caption. Imagine if there would be 3 or 5 rows, and you would see a very small 5 columns only in one limited space. Then COM and automation controls should be implemented with .NET. OCX controls are not allowed even in the Windows client, but during upgrades from classic client, you will still meet those even in standard mail or file management code units. Automations were fully working solution in the classic client, semi-working solution in the Windows client, but it throws warning for using it, and I think it works only on client's computer, not on the server. If you would use automation on the background tasks like task scheduler, you will get an error. And in the web client, you cannot use automations anymore. And of course, there is .NET also limitation. And again, I took commonly used code unit file management, which has two .NET controls which are the same, but has a different type, run on client true and run on client false. Run on client true, it means that .NET works on the client's computer. It reaches all system files in the client's computer. So for example, you have file on the desktop in your computer, you run a web client on your computer, and NAV can see it and upload it, rename it, change the contents without confirmation from you in your computer. And with run on client false, even if you are running Windows client on your computer, this .NET is running on the server side. It cannot reach any file on your computer, only all files which are currently on the server. And what is happening in the file management in the Business Central 15 plus versions? You see there are still run on client controls present in the file management code unit, but new code appeared which checks if the local file system is accessible. And file system local is accessible only if client type is Windows. And of course, on web client, and current client type is always web and other, but not the Windows. So you will always get this error in the web client. So you won't even need to look through all the .NETs, which are run on client, which you created, but also you need to look the functions which Microsoft has and uses run on client functions too. Why we cannot reach clients' computer files anymore? It's not because that there is a big architectural change, but there is that server now uses web server components. So it's on the NAV server, on the Business Central server instance, there is another web server instance, and it's only working in the server, and you get only a link from the server which you reach. And in the old architecture Windows client, there were two executables. One executable was the Windows client, second executable was server computer. So you had possibility to use all and Windows and server, but currently everything is in the one server computer right now. So file functionality, which is related with .NET run on client limitation, you cannot reach any client computer's directory automatically. Of course, Microsoft's native functions like upload or download are working, and you can still upload or download files from your computer to the server, but it's only when manual file selection opens. You need to choose the file. Even if you type a default location, it would open any location. So title location doesn't work anymore. Of course, you can give some file extensions to search, but nothing more. And if you would run accidentally on .NET run on client property true, we will get this error, and please look through those places. And also it includes shell command. It works only on server, so you can still run batches on the server, but you cannot run any external applications on client's computer from Business Central. So until now, you could, for example, open a P4 merge. You could open any application, notepad. You had Excel on your computer. Now you cannot do it. But you can use a hyperlink or other implementation API calls to implement this functionality. Then about the limitations in the internal application itself. So in Business Central 14, you couldn't use the XML port request pages. It is not supported. Microsoft written in its blog, in old blog, but currently there are a lot of new features implemented from Business Central 16 and small fixes which was even requested to Microsoft in the feature requests. So a lot of things are implemented and fixed to be working almost the same as you would use Windows client. So this is allowed from Business Central 16 and working the same way as it was in the Windows client. Other feature which is related, also working from Business Central 16, is the tree view. You can check it, and it's the same in the web client. Then on assisted it and look up on drill down behavior. If you noticed in the list, it is partially supported. And to show you a real example, so again, I'm showing a Windows client, 2 pages. It is here, it's lookup, it's a drill down, and when it's not editable, you could see assisted. But in the web client, you would see a very different picture where page is editable and it's not editable. When you see a field that it is editable and page is opened in the edit mode, you can see on lookup, trigger action, and on assisted trigger action. But if page is opened in view only, you see a drill down and assisted. So there is no drill down if field is editable, and there is no lookup when field is not editable. And for example, we have code in the on lookup trigger, but field is not editable, so it will never run because it will never be shown in the web client. So please be aware that on lookup trigger could never be executed if field is not editable, and you need to transfer, if you need the functionality, to different fields which are reachable in the web client. Quick entry, Microsoft said that it's not supported, but I tested from Business Central 14. Maybe it was a hotfix. It is working. I pressed enter and it jumped from name to location, which have quick entry true property. Contact is false, and it was skipped. Parts, chart part ID and part type are not supported in the web client. They were used in Windows client as native functionality to show charts from lists, but currently it's not working anymore. But again, you can expose data and page and send it through API, use Power BI functions, which are showing more deeper charts. And yeah, there are many ways to implement this. Or export it to Excel and use chart functionality Excels, which Excel has, yeah, and other things. System part ID only nodes and links can be used. Also, report request pages were changing through different Business Central versions, and now from Business Central 16 it became fully usable and same working as in the Windows client. So on the left you see a Windows client request page. In the middle there is Business Central 14. In the Windows client you could add any more fields, but in the Business Central 14 you could select only one field which you want to filter, and 16 has fixes included. You can add any field and a value in the filter. And for Microsoft, as I just remembered, in the Business Central 17, if you would press preview and close the preview, you will be in the same request page with the same filters before pressing the preview button, but it works only from the current release. Reports printing also changed because we can't reach the client's computer anymore, like I mentioned in the files in .NET. So in Windows client, if report was printed without opening a request page, it took client's computer default printer and it was printed on your home or any location you are on the client's computer. But in the web client, background report printing is done through server computer now, default printer. And if you are in home, in the Windows client, you printed without a request page reports at your home. Now, if you do it, it will print on your server machine in the remote office or any other location where server computer is. So there is implementation patterns which Microsoft also presented. You can develop printer extensions that then you print do background printing. The code unit could use SMTP mail or mail management code unit to send your printing document as PDF as mail to the printer, and the printer would get the email and print your report in the location you want or you are. So there are other many implementation patterns. You can send the report to yourself and print it manually, or you can do a preview, open the request page and use it manually, again printing at your machine, at your home. Then page triggers, close page and query close page are working the same, only if the page is opened in embedded mode or in run model mode. And if I would try to close the page, it fires the trigger. It works the same as in the Windows client. But Microsoft has introduced a new functionality to open the page in the different tab. If you would press this one, so the page looks like this. It's a different page. But if I would close it, nothing, no trigger will fire. It gives some errors if you have developed functionality that you are using temporary table, filling the data, and then you change the data, you write code which saves differences in the SQL after closing the page. So you can have errors in your solution. So there are different paths. This idea, which I just told, using temporary tables, is in the standard Microsoft. For example, dimensions. You have only set ID. When you open dimension table, it generates temporary table dimension values, and they are saved on the close page. Microsoft has implemented a bit differently to save immediately everything. But you can see or think different patterns which you need in your solution. Obsolete user interface features, so they are not commonly used, like send everything to Microsoft Word, copy link to page, send it to another person, or print page. So they have all the alternatives, like you have the browser functions. You can copy the text from the HTML and transfer it to the Word, or you can copy a link of your browser URL. So you can copy URL in the web client and send it to another without copying a link. Recipient as attachment and others, so they can be implemented using web browser functionality. So all these tasks which I was talking are here in this one list, that it's like a checklist that you need to solve before going to use in the web client your solution to implement all these tasks which I mentioned to you in the previous slides. Then if you want, we have One-Click Factory has upgrade analyzer via calculating web client effort for you and for free. We have, if you would register and log into our system, you could request upload your solution, and in 5 days you will get upgrade analyzer, which shows 5 different options. They include web client, redesign part, and other parts which we have in our standard upgrade processes. And seeing details, you will see how many limitations we found and how much it costs in the fixed price proposal. So it's free, you can use it, you can budget your upgrade projects before starting the upgrade, and yeah, it's not chargeable. And if you want, we also have CL2 extension analyzer. It analyzes not only web client limitations, but all other limitations like too big names, field names, missing translations, objects which are not used anywhere, and so on. The price for a bigger solution is €500, or it's free if your solution is very small. We can provide you this list. So hope you get something new from my webinar. Thank you for attending webinar, and yeah, be safe. Bye-bye.